Hello and welcome to Spare Change Podcast. Today I have on Dr. Pat. Dr. Pat, just based on the conversations that we previously had, and again, some of the things that I've seen you talk about on LinkedIn, you talk about mentoring business and other executives, business owners and executives, and showing them better ways to do what they're already doing and to include a mind, body, and soul approach. I definitely find that interesting. I think it's something that could help a lot of us. What would you have me know that I don't already see in that um overall framework of things? Like what would be some of the things that you'd like people to know up front about what you do?
Well, I mean, there's, some of my background goes back over 38 years of managing people's health and their outcomes for their health and for their families and their grandchildren and their kids and the whole spiel. And so in transitioning over to where I'm working with just the parents, where I feel that, like who has the most influence? 'Cause who are the people who can make a change or make a difference, going from this day forward into the future is always your parents. It's just like you have the, and I think that's an important feature. So I think that what a lot of people miss, and a lot of times people think that they can do it on their own, that they have it handled. Or maybe they already have a mentor, maybe they already have a coach, but one thing that a lot of people don't combine in that mindset component of it is also your health and the five pillars of health. And with the positive mindset, with the positive, mental attitude. Because if you need to have that in order to be successful physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, and financially. You cannot make good decisions if your mind and body and your health are not all in the same place and going in the same direction. And we see a lot of people and examples here, today, and um, in society where we just have these, like great hiccups again and again with people's behavior and what is considered, you know, just like common sense normal. Forget about a new norm. So I think that, I think that a lot of times that we need to take a look at the whole big picture and then be able to piece that out, individually. And what I do is incredibly individualized also because I can deal with two members in the same family and the approach is different based upon the outcome and desired needs of the person who I'm involved with doing that coaching and mentoring aspect. And one of the reasons why I mentor and coach in the same package is because I will never ever tell anybody to do anything I wouldn't do myself. And there's not a lot of people out there that can say that. There's not a lot of doctors when you're asking them about vaccinations, for instance, for their kids, if they actually vaccinated their kids also. There was a huge study years ago that there was a big discrepancy in that. Um, I don't know what it is anymore. I haven't, looked into that specifically, but I'm just using that as an example for right now.
Yeah, and I think that just your original support network, and like you talked about how a lot of what people struggle with, it kind of comes from those early stages where, either they were missing something or maybe weren't even taught something in their childhood, and it ends up affecting them in a business, and um like even just their interpersonal relationships going forward, and that can affect like all these different aspects of your life. um and what you talk about, where it's like, you're not going to put somebody in a position where, hey, I wouldn't do this, but this is what I'm advising you to do. I think that's great to realize, not everybody's going to have every answer, but the answers that you do have are coming from a place of either knowledge or experience. And
Mm.
I think that's one of the biggest things when we talk about building a relationship on trust. If you have a mentor or coach or even someone that you have a personal relationship with, building it on trust, knowledge, and experience is much better than building it on just advice to one another.
Well, you also have to have that reality check too. I mean, the part of the reality check is that you need to have, like you have to understand what your basic bottom line is. And if you don't understand what your basic bottom line is, then you're constantly always putting the cart before the horse and thinking that the horse is going to push the cart as opposed to pull the cart. And then even if you get the horse in front of the cart, proverbially speaking, is that you got to get the horse attached correctly. It's just like when I was a kid, they threw me on a horse and I kept on saying there was something wrong with the saddle and they all thought I was a crazy woman and a crazy female kid, and I said, no, 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 it's fine. It's like sliding off. And sure enough, like a half hour later, the saddle just went and I went and crashed on the ground. So you got to know, like, when you're driving, that proverbial horse, you got to know what are you driving? It's just like, is your body a sanctuary? So I always equate it because people love cars, right? What's your favorite car?
Mm,
What's your favorite car?
that's a really good question. I think
If money was no object, what's your favorite car?
I like a Porsche 911.
Okay, so it's just like, so my question to you, are you driving a jalopy, a Mustang, or a Porsche 911? And if you want to drive a Porsche 911, you know that there's certain requirements in your agility and your cum in order to drive a 911. The steering's tight, and so are the brakes. And so you have to know what you're like when you're looking at, like, I want to drive that car, you've got to know, like, I got to give it premium gasoline. You can't run a Porsche on regular gasoline, especially one that has ethanol in it. And so, it's that your body's the same way. You're feeding everything you put in your mouth, you're feeding and fueling your body to be able to think, feel, and move better. And everything that you're doing when you're doing that is either promoting disease or it's fixing it. And so you have to understand where that balance at. And a lot of people don't understand. They always think, well, I can deal with my health later. It's very problematic to deal with your health later. But it all goes back to mindset, because if you don't have the mindset, like if you want to lose weight, if you don't have the mindset, like, so like, oh, I've got to gear up to do my diet, right? Well, that's because you're sitting your mindset in gear in order to be able to move forward. But you've got to know your basics. You've got to know where you're starting at in order to go from point A to point Z. And that's why one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? Which is a book of questions that tells you where your weakest link is at and where your strongest link is. It also acts as a workbook, a guidebook, and an advocating tool, and it tells you specifically where to spend your time, your energy, and your money so you can get unstuck in all aspects of your life. And so you can focus on your wellness and all the wonderful things that you have to do in your life, and you can get past that, and get past those barriers and have the breakthroughs that you need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, at least from the aspect of if you already know kind of that you're going to take a while to do something because of a mental commitment, it
Hmm.
can be just that much more of a hurdle because now you're addressing it as, hey, these are the problems that I have to fix before I can even tackle the main problem that I'm trying to resolve. And then you give
Well,
yourself this grocery list.
you've got to have a plan. You've got to start somewhere, and where your mind goes, your body follows, and where your, body goes, your mind follows. They're in sync. And the Chinese say that the heart is, houses the mind and the mind houses the soul. And the windows to the soul are your eyes. So when you're looking, and there's no process does not require time. So if you can get over those aspects and then utilize that advantage or disadvantage that you have and use that adversity, you can make huge strides and, live to your full human potential, in this lifetime. The puzzle, but for sure, the bottom line figure that you have to have is you have to have your health and you have to have your mind along for the road, and to be able to go forward and to make the plans that you need, because everything takes time. Sometimes you like, partnering two heads are better than one. You just have to make sure you pick the second head. That's better than one, and be able to fund it. That's why they have masterminds. Masterminds, in community is so important to be in community with like-minded individuals. And if you're like, if my community isn't that for you, then find a community that's knowledgeable, that is able to support you. But I always like I would love to, welcome your people into my community, which uh, on Facebook, it's Be Stronger Than Medicine is how the title is now. It's going to be changing shortly to just Be Stronger. But excuse me, but but we all have to understand that we have to figure out what do we have to work with? What do I need to have? Who's got that information that I need to have? Because why would you want to say, like, I have your 911 and I can go on the highway and I can get to where I want to go to in an hour and a half. Why would you walk it if you got the car and you have the capacity to do that? It doesn't make any sense. So you have to have the right information, the right people to support you to be the best person you possibly can be and live to your full human potential. I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yeah, I think some of the key things that you really just spoke on, well, we talk about, you know, usually we're talking about one thing that's going either wrong or right in our life, but you
Mhm.
talked about it being more of a this big interactive puzzle. So when you talk about mind, body, and soul, like you have to have all of those legs at the table, otherwise it's not going to work for you. Um, and then
Well, you
another
actually
thing,
have them. Whether or not you acknowledge them is another thing.
right?
Because if
And
you acknowledge them and you acknowledge their existence, then it propels you even a little bit closer. And it's just being consistent.
yeah, and I think consistency and having all of those aspects of your life in good standing, like you talk about, can be very powerful in not only a business space, but in your interpersonal relationships and all of the little aspects of life will start to shift in the same direction as your business life and as your professional life does when you start to improve them or when you start to neglect them. It'll follow the trend eventually.
Mhm.
Um, two of the other
Well, they're
things
all
you spoke
connected,
on,
right? They're all connected. They always say, "Show me your personal life, and I'll tell you what your business looks like. Show me your business, and I'll tell you what your personal life looks like."
definitely.
I don't remember exactly whoever said that, but I know that that's been said in the past in relationship to that, and I found that pretty much to be true.
And I wanted to kind of pick out two of the other things you talked about, where it's like, not everything's immediate, and you're going to have to work for whatever it is your goals are. And I think a lot of people, especially now with the internet and the way that we are constantly exposed to like someone else's success online, it can be very prohibitive in that your mindset might not be aligned with what you're seeing, where you want to have this like overnight success and that's all you see all day. But then in reality, like you don't know the work that's been done on the front end for those other people that you see online. Just like
Right.
there's a lot of people
And
that preach success but don't really show you the work they put in.
right. Sometimes you'll never know that the level of work or the level of intention. Because I always think you have to have something to instigate the fire, right? You just can't go up and say at your fireplace and go, flame on, unless you've got an automatic lighter. But, you have to spark it, right? And you've got to put the right materials in. You got to have a right amount of, starter wood with the paper and the right kind of log. If the log's too young, it doesn't burn, it smokes. It's the same thing about our lives. So there's a lot of analogies that we can use for that one particular piece. And it's realizing and honoring yourself while you're going through a process. It's just like, is there anything I can do to expedite this so this could, if can I learn this faster so I can get on to my next level and step up and step into who I really am? And so and finding that, those steps, is sometimes daunting. Sometimes it's a headache, but it's just a lot of those things will lead us like, like why do I keep on hitting my head? It doesn't Einstein defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So when something's not working in our lives, we owe it to ourselves first, and foremost to figure out like, what is it? like, what's going on? What is it that I have to correct? What's working? What isn't working? And the stuff that isn't working, where does that come from? Because a lot of times, like you mentioned just a couple seconds ago, like people, things that happen to us or what we overhear, like if you always heard your parents arguing about money, and every time it seems like you get somewhat successful or get to another level, you blow it. You get fired, you sabotage yourself, you do something, it's like same thing in relationships. That's in every aspect of your life. But there's a way to break through that and go back and find out exactly where that emotion is anchored, because your mammalian brain, there's primitive mammalian and there's conscious brain. The mammalian brain stores all your emotions, whether they're positive or negative. And anytime something sets itself up that's similar to that, that memory is going to get triggered, whether you remember it or not. But your body will react in that fashion, and it will anchor it to a specific place, time, place, event, or thing, or in an organ system. That's why you kind of like, well, what's your weakest link? Well, let's work on what the weakest link is, and let's see how that emotional ties into what's going on with you and what's preventing you from getting on to being your best person. And then you can probably like, okay, so if I know what that is, how do I bust through that? And what is it that I need to do? Because a lot of times people, they can't get out of their own way. It's just like there's something that happens and they take it on as if it happened to them and it wasn't them. But when you watch way too much TV, you get conditioned, you know, and to behave in those certain fashions. There's a lot of studies that relate what I'm talking about right now. And so if you have those things happen to you and you're assimilating them, it's just like the question is like, what is preventing you from getting on with the rest of your life? What is it? Is it your mother, your father? Was it a time, space, event, something that happened to you? Wouldn't it be great if you could just say, oh, yeah, I know what that is. That doesn't control my life at all anymore. I think better, feel better. I pick better, I make better decisions, and I feel more balanced. And that way, you're sleeping better, you're want to move better, you're more energetic, you have enough energy to make it through the day so you're not depleted, by the end of the day, let alone at 12 noon, and you make better choices for your food. You are in control of what you eat, and you have to honor your body as being a sanctuary and give it the foods that it needs in order to be on your A game and stay on your A game. I mean, there's a whole list. I could go on. But I know we have limited time here to really speak to that. But I'm happy to speak to anybody who's listening to this a little bit more thoroughly. And I have a couple questionnaires that, I give out. A matter of fact, take your telephones out and text to 26786, the initials MDQ. And that will give you a health snapshot. And they'll also tie you in with me so that we can get you, some better information so you can make better decisions. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was just the aspect of networking and how powerful that can be, to get out of your own head, get out of your own way. Adding new perspectives can often be like maybe just that next step that you needed, and it can allow you to kind of open your mind to new solutions that you can have in life to improve the little things. I know for me, networking has been huge, especially with the podcast and like even just day to day learning
Mhm.
things from people that I've never met or have just met recently. Um, Definitely have picked up a lot of knowledge along the way, especially after just doing this for a year and being able to talk to new people, get new insights. I think even even the little things like what you showed me with the um thing that helps like turn around a really bad hangover. That's something new I learned, and we've definitely talked back and forth a bit about all the different things that can help you improve um, just day to day life. So I think networking is huge. And you talked on just even having social connection that allows you to kind of discover new parts of yourself.
Mhm. If you don't push yourself, nobody's going to. And you can't even like, rely on your partner to be able to participate in that. You just have to ask your inner self, like, what is it that I really want to do? And like, people go like, oh, I'm shy. I can't go up and talk to that guy, and so, say, hey, Dawson, my name's Dr. Pat Pallone. Tell me, what are you working on right now? What excites you today? What are you passionate about? And because people love to talk about themselves. So when you go up to someone new, and if it's something that resonates with you, it's like, wow, how can I help you do that even better? And then you just got them making a new friend, and then you need to follow up. Follow up is huge. A lot of people just don't never follow up, but follow up is huge. I
Yeah.
think and that's something that's sorely missed in networking. You go out to meet somebody or do something with somebody, and you say like, oh, I always say when somebody goes like, "Hey, what's your Thursday like?" And I said, "Here's my calendar link for Tuesdays and Thursdays." And I go grab time on my schedule and put it on my calendar, or else it doesn't happen. And so I never open my calendar. I very rarely have the capacity to do that, especially if I'm traveling, for that. And so that can be a problem sometimes. Um, because I just don't have the capacity to look. So I want to say like, hey, Dawson, 9 o'clock Wednesday morning, let's meet. Like, let's do this podcast then. And you can say, sure, sure. And then you come to find out that you can't do it then because you got to be at the vet's because you have a cat. And, and you're going like, oh, now we got to reschedule it. Why not just schedule it, and put it on someone's calendar people who don't have calendars, they should get calendars, even if you don't have a business. It's just so that you can have your life a little bit more organized so that what you see in front of you and what gets put in front of you, you have a tendency of doing. What gets written gets scheduled, what gets scheduled gets done. So, and also, you talk about like, one of the things I work on with people is finding three things. It ends up being nine because I three things people can do every day. So this is like a pro bono for your people. You know, what are three things that you need to do every day for yourself? What are three things that you need to do for your work? And what are three things you need to do for your relationship? That's nine things, you know, and that, it's just like nine before nine is what I call that, nine before nine. And so it's just, like, and if you get them done, then it frees you up to do other things that are much more exciting, and maybe more creative for you to do. But you can never underestimate networking. And for people who like even on LinkedIn, God bless them, but LinkedIn, a lot of people don't use LinkedIn for its intention. It's like being at a trade show, and you have your booth. That's your profile. And then when you have your profile, people go by and they read it and they like it. And if they like it, they take brochures from you. That's how you connect with them. They're in your network, and if they like what you do and they want to talk to you about that a little bit more, then you make time. Just like, hey, can I grab time and talk to you about, I've got a health issue, or else I want to know I'm healthy. I just want to know how I can do it better. Because people always have a tendency to wait until they have disaster going on to try to fix their health, which I highly not recommend. Um, and I think it's important to like utilize the platforms that you're on for what they are. And then be able to connect with the right people. Because if you connect with the right person, you just need one person who's the right person to go like, oh, I know somebody who can help you go from point A to point C. And they're really cool. And they're easy, they're approachable, and the such. And you got to hold yourself accountable too, right? A lot of people don't hold themselves accountable. That's why I always say that they can't get out of their own way. But that's unfortunate, but focusing on the mindset and focusing on positive mental attitude gets you there a lot faster, and plus wellness initiatives, you've got a formula for success.
Yeah. One of the things you kind of went over is like self-advocacy and like how you have to be there for yourself before other people can be there for you. What is like one key thing that you run into where people are not advocating for themselves or they don't have their own like um they're not their own cheerleader, they're not like really pushing themselves personally versus, waiting for somebody else to kind of help motivate them.
They do bad self-talk. and they do bad self-love. Like, when something happens, they have a tendency to beat themselves up. And that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help. Nobody wins on that, and a lot of times, a lot of those same people perpetually say that they're sorry for whatever it is that they think that they did or didn't do. Um, so I really work on having people just own their mistake and how to fix the mistake as opposed to dwelling on something that they can't do anything about. And that's a question to ask because when people overthink, you get sick. When you overthink, you don't digest your food. And other organ systems have a tendency to be faltered because of that over a long period of time of doing that. And so it's important to really funnel in on what's exciting, you know, how to get past that. And one of the things to do is self-love, create boundaries, and drink enough water so you stay hydrated so you can think well and feel better. It's for your joints, digestive systems, for everything. Hydration's huge. It's an important thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on and I've been kind of that person before, but just understanding like it doesn't benefit you to like be your own critic and to kind of put yourself in a corner over something that you've done wrong. It just helps more to address it. So like having come from the mindset of, you know, I'm my biggest enemy when it comes to the things that I'll say about myself when I'm like not doing what my expectations were or not meeting a certain goal that I wanted to meet. Um, it definitely helps to kind of frame it in more of a accepting the responsibility for it and then understanding that there's a way forward, whatever that might be, and you just have to change whatever it is that you were doing because obviously it wasn't working.
So
Um,
let's talk about affirmations then, because when you say, maybe when you're going for something, you're not going, you need to change your verbiage for how you're going. It's just like, in your affirmations, I say, I am healthy, active, successful human being. I affirm this day that all tissues in my body are functioning perfectly, and that's the way it's supposed to be. On this day, I give loving service to blah, 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 whatever, uh, the affirmation says, like, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am wise, I make great decisions. You're not saying I want to make great decisions or I will make great decisions. You have to say it as if you're already happened to you and it happens to you all the time. So that's, I think, when people, I ask the question a lot of times when I'm talking from a stage, it's like, why do you think people don't reach their greatest goals or reach any of their goals? And a lot of people don't know how to plan. They don't know how they put the cart before the horse and they don't have the mindset for it, and they're not like geared up to it. So something's telling before they're even starting that they're going to fail. And so that's the primitive brain talking, and you want to quell that primitive brain. But if you have experiences that have happened that have always set you back, it's just like women, for instance, who always say, like, oh, I never meet the right guy. Every guy I meet's just a jerk, and well, if you keep on saying that, those are the people you're going to attract to you. And if you keep on saying that, you know, like today is my best day ever. I'm going to be the best me I possibly can be today, and I'm going to smoke, man. I'm psyched. And it's just like, you have to have that self-talk that's so pristine and so clear that it quells that mammalian brain that tries to let and the primitive brain start to rev up their fire. You have to like quell that and just like push them off your shoulder. And that's where your conscious brain comes in, where you think deliberate thoughts for your prosperity, for your health, for your life, for your mentality, and for your plans. You've got to be in that brain to do that. And when stuff happens, you just like, okay, so this happened. What did I learn from it? Make the list of what you learned from it and then decide you don't have to do that ever again. Or if it happens again, you're going to say, maybe there's something a little bit, my plan needs to be tweaked. Maybe it's the people who I'm associating with. I have too many toxic people around me because they all derail you in a nanosecond anytime. The people who are your well meaning relatives relatives and family going like, "What are you doing that for?" As soon as someone says that to me, I immediately shut them out of my world. They might be families, I might have to deal with them, but I don't have those conversations with them. I direct my conversation and I direct where my mind goes. And so having, and when you hear that, it's like those people like plant this seed for defeat. You, it's just like you just push them back in a way and go, "Thanks for sharing that with me. Have a great day." And you keep on and you move on. So I have a lot of techniques that I teach people for dealing with that or identifying that even because a lot of times we don't identify that. And that's important too because you have to first be aware. You have to have awareness, and there's a lot of things that you can do. You can aspire, like I could have aspired to be a medical doctor, or a chiropractor, which I eventually ended up doing instead of becoming for a medical doctor for specific reasons. But if I was aspiring to it, there was nothing to inspire me. That's why you need the spark. Then you need the inspiration. And then from the inspiration, you need action. You need a plan. You need action. So you can listen to people who have been very prosperous and very, you know, uh, that can lead the way, like Jack Canfield, Jim Rohn, John Maxwell, Bill Walsh. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that, have, been there, done that, you know, did it work one time? No. Is it going to work going into the future? It's just like you got to have better plans. You got to have, you don't get it in your car and drive to California without a map and take every road that goes west because west roads don't necessarily go west. You need a compass, and you need a plan in how to get there.
Yeah, I think and you've said this a few times, but planning is everything and it really does matter. Um Even if you've gone down the wrong path, like if you can start to build a plan, you can really change the trajectory of not only your day but your entire life. You can really alter the way that you talk about yourself and kind of start making these healthier decisions, and then all of a sudden now your entire like mindset throughout the day is different now. Just the way that you manage and carry yourself is so much better, and you have a much
Mhm.
brighter outlook, and even your interactions with other people because they start to notice it too. um
Right.
just
Well,
a
you're
healthier. Yeah.
happy, healthier, vibrant, and strong. And you have to have that strength and that fortitude physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for sure. And you know, uh, and you have to have that. It's just those are basic things that you have. A chiropractic doctor from China that was in Boston who was very big name said to me once when I was talking to him, and he told us, "Patricia, you should have children." And I said, "No, I shouldn't." And but he said, you have a strong character. Think about people. Can you name 5 people in your life right now that you think have strong character? Challenge, not just, challenge your audience. Just like, who do you know that has a strong character that nothing can disturb their peace of mind? And it's just like, I have a short list, but it's not a long list. When I think about that, like who can I go to that always to me is very stable. And so, when he said that to me, um, that's like one of the turning points in me deciding to go to school to be a acupuncture physician also. Because I just like that I like to study and I like knowledge because knowledge is, is great as long as you know how to put it in a step-by-step process. And because it's more powerful then. Because there's knowledge. You can look up anything on Google. Hopefully it's true. But it's being able to implement that knowledge into that step-by-step process that you can use to propel you and ignite you to move forward. And you just have to really assess like your relationships. You have to really assess who you're having conversations with every day, you know, and whether, it's just like, 'cause a lot of times people don't know that they're being negative. And a lot of people just like, "Oh, that guy is so negative." They ever listen to themselves? You should tape them, put send them a tape anonymously. But you have to be able to look at that. aspect.
Yeah.
And then you can move forward, and then you can make better decisions. And if you need, what I do is I'm ultra organized. So what I do is I help my clients become more organized in those thought processes. It isn't like they don't already have it. Sometimes it's just in the wrong order.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things, even in the short time that we've talked, between right now and our first conversation, I've implemented little things that you've brought in, such as the
Oh,
calendar that we talked about, and
mm-hmm.
now I'm more organized in that sense. Where not only do I have like a Zoom link that I can send somebody, but I have a calendar to direct them, uh, kind of where I can better organize myself. And I definitely think a lot of things that you talk about are not this insane, like difficult thing that you have to implement like over time. It can be very
Right.
quick. So a lot of the things
Just do
that
simple things, right?
right.
Do the things that you like. What is it that I can do today that makes my life happier, healthier, and promotes me moving forward? For you, it was making the calendar, and it's just like, and a lot of people don't like, if they don't, like I said before, they don't run off of calendars, and usually I don't go on podcasts unless they send me a calendar link to get on the podcast, and, um, because I don't have the bandwidth at my level right now to be able to go, okay, let me stop everything else I'm doing because it breaks up that pattern. So like in being more productive in a daytime, this like, the theory is to do things in 2-hour increments with a half-hour break you know um and so everyone's got their stamina point, but a lot of times we push ourselves like it's 6 hours that you're sitting in front of a computer, as opposed to going like, well, all of a sudden it's 5 o'clock at night and I started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I took a small break for lunch, so it's just like I got no exercise today. It's not, you got to think about how do you take care of yourself, because you can't nurture somebody else in any industry, unless you nurture yourself first.
Yeah, that speaks to there's a concept that I've learned from a guest that I kind of reach back to every now and then. But it's kind of like an hourglass where the people who find themselves at the bottom or even at the middle, they kind of still need that support, versus the people who are at the top of the hourglass, kind of they're able to reach back down and support the people who, they've had similar experiences with similar struggles. And it's kind of, who is in need and why, and then they kind of build themselves up to a point to where they no longer have those same needs. They're able to reach down and support others that have been in their
Right.
position.
So, you can always go in and you can make a plan. You can write it down. Have an idea, write it down. Get a journal. I mean, I don't have anything right here I can show you of something. I take my notes for calls that I'm on, like in a book like this, but you could use it as a journal, and it's like, and then say, who do I need to meet? Who isn't already in that industry that I can network with or meet, who might give me some insight of how to do it easier, or how to do it faster, or how to just like, or how to just do it. Forget about the easier or faster. I mean, maybe sometimes you have to go through a process in order to go from point A to point C. But if you can see it and you can think it, you can have it. That's how I function.
That's awesome. I like that. I was gonna ask, just based on your personal experiences or experiences with clients that you've helped in the past, what is one thing that you've taught somebody that was really key to helping them change their mindset and kind of find a better place for themselves? Or what is maybe even something that somebody's taught you that's helped improve your day-to-day management of both your own time and your goals?
Well, on the first one, what comes to mind, specifically is being aware of yourself and aware, like your worthiness, and like why you're with who you're with, you know, and why that was important then and is it really still important now? Um, and so that you can graduate from that and be your own person. A lot of people identify with other people. They don't identify themselves, so the big battle is to identify yourself, and put your high heels on, or your big girl, big boy panties on, and walk the walk and talk the talk. If you're going to say you're going to do something, then do it. Keep your word. People don't keep their words anymore. They're like, oh, sorry, I just ran, like, I've overslept. It's just like, that doesn't cut it in my life, and it's just like when I get this, I don't show up. If I'm like 10 minutes late as possible because it's a Zoom problem. Um, but if I do it to the point, it's just like if I don't show up for something, then something happened. And but because I am my word, and you can only be measured by what you tell people that you do and that you keep your word on. So I think it's really it's important for that. But I think there's things that happen, of course, that unforeseen things, like I had a computer kind of crash the other day, and that changed the trajectory of how my whole day was going to go as far as meetings go, because I couldn't get back into the internet, right? And um, and so but it's just like, but then you just say, like, you know what, I had a problem. Can we reschedule? I apologize. I don't say I'm sorry. I apologize for like the absolute, mix up that happened. What can I do to make it up to you? People have a hard time saying those words, but if they say them, then people go like, oh, you know what, that's happened to me before. And anybody who doesn't take that as an answer, you don't want them in your energy sphere anyway. Your ecosystem should be pure.
That's a great way to think about it, is like, just committing to something and having, not really the ability to, I wouldn't say that it's like, um, admitting that you're wrong more than it is saying, these are kind of the things that have gotten in the way, or this is, and just being like forthright and honest with somebody. If there's an issue, you can own up to it, but not like just being sorry and not really having an answer. That might not be enough. That might not cut it. And then there might be a disconnect, or even just a difference of opinions that turns into something worse, because you didn't give that person the information that they felt they needed in regards to why an issue got in the way. Um, I might be saying it in a way that's not direct, but I think having the honesty and being upfront with someone about something is more helpful than just an apology. And I think that's
Hmm.
kind of what you were.
Apologies, apology without an action means nothing. And it's just and the thing is that people accept that and they're complacent, in that requirement. And if if you ever want to, like, not be complacent, stop watching TV. Just, if you really want to get ahead, because it's very energy draining and you get a lot of information and disinformation. You have to do your own research. When the whole pandemic was going on and I would say something, people were like, well, I can't believe you said that. Well, I was trained differently than a medical doctor. You know, I had the basic sciences as a medical doctor. But what I did is that, I went onto PubMed. I looked for articles that related to specific, whatever topic was going on, and I always said at the very end of any post that I had, I said, do the research for yourself and start using common sense again, because that's what is really lacking in a lot of people, is that ability. Is sometimes the common sense goes out because we get scared, and we get scared, we don't make good decisions when we're scared. So you have to, like, take a deep breath, and then like, think about what it is that you're having, that's being so troublesome, and, like, how to best ascertain and get the right information. So there's always, look up the information. Where can I find this? What is this? You know, how do I do this? Or, if I need to do something like how to put in an air filter, the cabin filter in my car, I opened up YouTube. Cabin filters are for example, $10 and the dealership wants to charge me 70 or $80 to put one in. I went, you got to be kidding me. How long does it take? You know,
Yeah.
and
I
just
I just
like, you
had
know,
the
this, I mean,
I just had
right,
a similar experience with my car. Because previous experience was I just had the dealership take care of something, and then I found out how much it would really cost me to do it myself. So the second time this problem came about, I did it for instead of solving 25% of the problem for three times the cost, I did 100% of the problem for like a third of the cost. Um,
right.
Compared to what the
Well,
mechanic would charge you. So
you know, I just look at the, you know, like they wanted to charge me. Well, they dealerships charge you outrageous prices anyway, and their hourly rate is huge. For some things, you know, it's just like I'm not gonna put my hands in and do the air filter for the car because of how it's latched in, you know. And I'm thinking, you know, go that's not you if that's something that you really want them to put in the right place, unless you really have an acumen to climb into an engine. Some things are, I mean, it's like, and that's the same in life, right? If you make the analogy to life, some things are really, you know, we think they're difficult, but they're not, you know, and if we just sit down and sit with it, you know, and not at it, then we can come up with better solutions. You know, one of the things that, you know, my why in life is to like problem solve. And I like to make, um, you know, I like to make sense of challenges, you know, that so that they're safer, quicker, you know, and also, um, s- you know, so you can get on with like your life, you know, and not have it hold you up. You know, because when you do that, then you have motion, and life is about motion. If you don't move, you're going to die. I mean,
that's
basically.
that's an interesting it reminds me of kind of like what you're taught in school about sharks, you know. Definitely think that having progression is like really key. If you don't see progression in life, it kind of demotivates you and sets you back in just mindset and understanding like, oh, well, I haven't seen any real progress. And some people, instead of changing their perspective on it or changing what they're putting into the algorithm of life, they kind of allow, if they have a pattern of defeat, they allow it to continue just because they feel like they can't succeed.
Well, that's, you know, that's very true, you know, because there's people who, you know, I worked with somebody who one of his main goals was to lose weight, you know, and my comment always is you have to have a healthy body to lose weight. You don't want to purge toxins out of your system and lose weight, because if you do, all those toxins, it has your God have to get things in in order to lose weight. So you have to be healthier to do that. And sometimes, you know, that takes, you know, you think like, wow, I can't believe this is taking this long. Well, you know, you got to go back and look at your behavior. Are you sick? You know, do you cheat? You know, are you cheating on your diet? Are you eating sugar? Are you eating hidden sugars? You know, and you know, when you look at that, and then, you know, if you start reading labels, like I always tell people to lead and read what they, if you can't pronounce it for sure, definitely look up the side effects, you know, and because you want to know what you're putting in your body, how it's going to affect you. Because we all know Thanksgiving dinner where we have like a little extra turkey and we have a little extra potatoes or dressing, right? For that meal, and then you're exhausted. You know, it's that chemistry of that. But people eat like that all the time, and they wonder why they have brain fog, you know, and they wonder why they can't sleep, you know, and they wonder why, you know, their stools are so smelly. You know, you know, it's just like there's a whole host of things that happen that we do because it's like, well, I don't want to give that up. Well, then plan to be sick then. You know, because that's the end result of not taking care of yourself. You know, and the title of my book is Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? You know, people know if they're tired. That's given. And people know basically if they're fat. Although you can have a lot of fat around your internal organs and be skinny. you would only know that by a body composition test, but people don't know if they're sick. And getting sick takes a period of time to get there. And so, and there's a lot of like little signs and symptoms like floaters, or the stool, like, and what it looks like, and what color it is, and how many times you go to the bathroom and, to pee, wake up at night, can't go back to sleep. And so you're missing that really key component of the deep level of sleep, which is where all the detoxification takes place for the brain and for your body. And you're dehydrated, you're not drinking enough water just to boot and go around, and you're not moving enough, and you're eating crappy food. You eat crap, you're going to feel like crap. And so you have, and it's not necessarily one time you do it, it's the accumulation type of effect, like an avalanche. You have a little crack and a piece of snow starts falling. And the next thing you know, the whole side's coming down. And that's when you're in crisis.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things out there. I mean, we're talking, some of this is like all over the board, but if I go, my hope today is that, people who are listening to this have the opportunity, if they pick up three things, just three things, you know, in our conversation that they find helpful, then we're successful.
Yeah,
And
and I think the overall message really is a lot of us know the changes that we're gonna have to make um to achieve our goals, but maybe we're not so willing to make them right now, or there's something getting in the way of us actually making that commitment. But if you apply, some techniques, and you start building your mind and body and your soul around one thing, that like trajectory, like it builds you a positive trajectory, and you just do that consistently, you can see a lot of change in your life. So I definitely think a lot of what we've talked about has been super helpful in understanding just the amount of things that you've got going on in your life shouldn't be this big roadblock for you to achieve your goals. You should be able to um, kind of realize where you're at right now, realize where you've come from and what you've grown into, uh, and then understanding what your goals are and being really mindful about it all and planning towards something that you want, and actually committing to the plan that you set forth. Um,
Mhm.
And again, Dr. Pat, I appreciate your time. I think you've definitely shared some golden nuggets. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this a few times just to make sure I get everything. Um, but definitely appreciate your time and appreciate you coming on and talking about all the things that you do, both for your clients and just in general in life, things that you've realized have benefited you, and how the things that you've done can help other people.
Mhm. That's why we're on the planet Earth, is we're all going in the same direction, technically, and we hopefully it's just like, and that's why everybody needs an oar, and I'll be oaring and like in sync with each other. So that's kind of the goal. And thank you very much for having me on your show today, and being able to share a lot of those golden nuggets. And for sure, it's just like you're going to have show notes of how to get a hold of me. And don't forget to text, 26786, and the initials MDQ, which will give you a health snapshot, health assessment. And then, I'll get that information, and then I'll also tell you about how to make time with me, to schedule that, and I'll be able to reach out to you. Also, and there's always my website, healthteamnetwork.com, and there's a mic. My favorite part of my website is the mic on the front page. If you scroll down, and there's a mic, and if you click on that link, you can leave me a message, and it goes directly to my email. So I will be able to answer you straight back, from that, and I love having questions, and I love challenges. So let's go have a challenge together, and let's get things fixed, keep moving forward, so that you can have all the success in your life that you deserve.
Awesome. And again, thank you for your time. And I hope whoever listens, you gain something out of this, and talk again soon. Definitely appreciate all the wisdom and knowledge you share.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.